All right, so just a little bit about myself. Like you said, I'm from Brunswick. I grew up just right over here in Old Mill, born in Lakewood, but spent most of my childhood right on Clover Drive. Went to Towsley for a couple years, St. Ambrose, Walsh, Padua, the Ohio State University. Then entered the Air Force, was in the Air Force for 20 years as a missile maintenance officer and then as a pilot for the rest of the time. After that, moved back to Ohio. Flew corporate for a while out in Youngstown, flew for the airlines for a little bit, and then found myself applying for a job with the Goodyear Blimp. And I've been there ever since, so 2017. So it's coming up on 9 years this summer. All right, so a little bit about us operation. We are a Part 91 operation. So what that means is we don't sell rides. People ask us all the time, hey, how do I buy a ride on the Goodyear Blimp? You can't. There's no way. It's impossible. All our rides are by guests of Goodyear. So we will invite you for a ride. A lot of them are charity rides. We'll donate rides to charities and they'll auction those off. We do a lot of rides for our tire dealerships and suppliers and manufacturers. This last couple of years, we've started doing a lot with social media folks, influencers and so forth to get it's a new way of advertising tires. Like I said, 1925, we just celebrated last year our 100-year anniversary of the Goodyear Blimp. 1925, somebody had the bright idea to not only market their rubberized fabric, but also to save money on billboard construction. So they just said, hey, let's put it on the side of a ship and fly it around. And it's been a great marketing tool ever since. We have 3 operational bases, one here in Akron. It's not the big black hangar in Akron that everybody thinks it is. Nope. That's not the old Goodyear Blimp hangar. The old Goodyear Blimp hangar is in Suffield, Ohio, about 5 or 6 miles to the southeast of there, and that's where the Blimp operation is based. That's the old Blimp hangar. That was built in 1917. The air dock, the big black hangar off of 224 in Akron, was built in 1929. So that's our younger brother. We have one in Pompano Beach, Florida, which is just north of Fort Lauderdale. And then one in Carson, California. It's on the south side of LA. Each of those 3 crews has about 20 folks on it, and that's pilots. We have our camera operators, our technicians that are on the ground at the stadium receiving the signals. We've got airship mechanics, vehicle mechanics that take care of all our support equipment. We've got the crew members who babysit the thing 24 hours a day. Whenever there's helium in it, there's somebody with it. So 2 in the morning in a 70-mile-an-hour thunderstorm with lightning and hail, there's somebody in that ship out there on the field. So, and then we have some PR folks and stuff that travel with us as well. Yeah, so this is Wingfoot Lake. This is the one down in Suffield. Nice, big, huge open space. Just for kind of a size comparison, our ship is 246 feet long. This hangar is 800 foot long. And in Pompano Beach, Florida, right on Pompano Airport, is the Florida operation. And then out in California, they don't have a hangar out there. They just have a space out there. We're actually in the process of moving the base out there, and we don't know where yet, but we're looking for a place where we can build a hangar. So why do we fly airships, right? Well, originally, it was a marketing tool and to market Goodyear's rubberized fabric. It's a Goodyear tire and rubber company, not just tires. So we were trying to sell this rubberized fabric, and this was a good way to show that it's a good sturdy fabric, and it was also a great way to advertise tires. As a marketing tool, Goodyear has 3, they have everything from the Blimp down to pens, right, as marketing things. The biggest marketing tools are the Blimp, NASCAR, and the Cotton Bowl that we won't talk about. But that was one of the Buckeyes' losses, for those who aren't in on it. The NASCAR and the Cotton Bowl are typically about a 3-to-1 return on the dollar for marketing money, which is great. I mean, that's a good return. The Blimp, usually an 11 to 13-to-1 return on the dollar. I mean, it's a incredibly valuable marketing tool. If anybody's a marketing person out there, you can tell me how you come up with those numbers. It's all magic, but it's an incredible marketing tool. But part of our history was also with the military. So the Goodyear Aerospace was building blimps for the Navy. We'd escorted 89,000 ships. Not a single ship lost while under escort. So it was an incredible tool because an airplane flying over couldn't see submarines, U-boats in the water because they were going too fast or they were too high. But an airship going nice and slow, and back then the submarines didn't have the technology to know that we were up there. We could spot them. And then the Navy Tech could have. So not a single ship lost out of 89,000 while under escort. And only one blimp was ever shot down. And the crew survived. So no lives lost and only one blimp lost. We built other things like barrage balloons, observation balloons, all during World War II. And then 1955, we said, hey, we got cameras. Why don't we strap a camera onto this thing? And they did that and went and filmed the Rose Bowl. And that was the first ever aerial broadcast of anything, of a sporting event nationwide. And we've been doing that ever since. So every time you're watching a game and you see, today's aerial coverage brought to you by Goodyear, that's all 100 years of history going into that. How that works is we don't get paid for the airtime, and we don't pay them to allow us to be there. There's no money exchange. But what happens is, those little ads that you see during the game, Goodyear, today's aerial coverage brought to you by Goodyear, more driven, et cetera, et cetera. Those aren't between a Pepsi and a Toyota commercial. They're during gameplay. So it's real valuable airtime. Only 10 seconds, but it's real valuable. So in exchange for the footage, we get maybe 4 of those a game, once a quarter, or once an hour during golf or something. So we get a certain number of those in exchange. So that's how they work that out. We have a night sign on the ship that a lot of folks are familiar with. We haven't had it on the one in Ohio for a while, but it is currently, we're going to install it this spring back onto the ship. But that'll show everything from when they started it back in the 50s, just like Christmas lights, right? Your Christmas tree lights, just incandescent bulbs. Now it's 36,000 little LED lights, could show every color of the rainbow. I could put this presentation on there and you could read it nice and clear from a mile away. Up close you couldn't read it, but from further away you could see it. We do STEM programs, really all of Goodyear does, but the Blimp is a big part of that, doing STEM programs. We do charity events, charity rides. We have a real big partnership with Toys for Tots with the Marines. So if anybody's gotten the opportunity to go down and donate their Toys for Tots that way, it's great. You get to drive through the hangar right along the airship. We have the place all decorated. You get to see the ship up close, and it's the biggest Toys for Tots drive in Ohio. So, all right, probably should have started with this. We're going to do a little vocabulary lesson, right? We know we're not a blimp. You don't have to tell us. All right. So, a dirigible. You've all heard the term dirigible. A dirigible is a lighter than air aircraft that can be moved, propelled, and steered. So if you took a hot air balloon, attached a box fan to it and a rudder, it becomes a dirigible. A blimp, which is what Goodyear's been for 90 years, up until 2016, was a blimp. That's a dirigible that the entire shape of the ship is maintained just by the pressure of the gases inside. So if you were to deflate this blimp, bring it down, it would come all the way down to the ground like a deflated balloon. A rigid airship, like the Zeppelins, the Hindenburg, the Graf Zeppelin, the Akron, and the Macon, some of those big, huge, rigid airships during the 20s and 30s, they have a full internal skeleton. So if you were to deflate this, it would still look the same, just the ridges would be a little more defined. Well, what we are now is a semi-rigid airship. So we have a structure inside, and I'll show you some pictures here in a minute, the structure inside, but the shape is maintained by the gases. But if you were to deflate that, it would go down to that internal frame. Well, the Goodyear semi-rigid airship doesn't flow off the tongue, so we still call it the Goodyear Blimp. People love to point out that we're not a blimp, but we know that. We know that. All right, so the current airship, 246 feet long, 65 feet wide, and 58 high. Without any helium in there, it weighs a little over 19,000, almost 20,000 pounds. A gondola can carry 10 passengers plus 2 pilots. The frame on the inside is aluminum and carbon fiber. It's as light as we can get it, but still having some strength. And then the envelope, the fabric on the envelope is a Tedlar that's infused with polyester. And what that does is it gives the fabric strength. So we can actually, when we're doing maintenance on there, the mechanics will be inside the airship walking around. You'll see their footprints walking around. It's like they're walking around on a trampoline and you're looking from underneath. So it gives it strength, and it also helps it if there's a rip, it'll stop the rip. And then the whole thing's coated on the inside with polyurethane, and that helps keep the helium inside. It's all fly-by-wire. That means it's electronic signals to the flight controls. No big cables and pulleys like the old ship, so that gets rid of weight. We don't have to have 200-foot long steel cables that you have to move manually and take up a lot of weight. There's 3 motors on there. They're IO360s. Lycoming IO360s, probably the most common aviation engine in the world. Would you agree? Yeah. So any of the little single engine airplanes that you see flying around out here, odds are probably a 75% chance there's an IO360 in that aircraft. It's a 4-cylinder, 200 horsepower motor. We cruise at about 35 to 60 knots. The book says 70 knots max. No way, not a chance. You could put a rocket on that thing, it's not gonna go 70 miles an hour, or 70 knots. Yeah, that's an engineer's number with ideal atmospheric conditions, sea level, none of the added drag or antennas or night sign or paint or anything else that adds drag. I think the fastest I've got it is little over 60 knots. Don't ask me what that is in miles an hour. I don't know. It's close. It's within a couple. If I'm in the air, it's knots. If I'm on the ground, it's mile an hour. All right, this is another little video. You saw part of it on the other one, but it's the NT build. But there's a couple things I'm going to pause on and show you, because we'll talk about those, about the inside of the ship. I knew that would happen. Well, let me try this one more time. Sorry, folks. I'm a pilot, not a tech guy. So I just want to take a look at the structure, that internal structure that they're building. The yellow ones, there's one going across the top and 2 across the side. And then you see that bag that's inflating and deflating, that's called a ballonnet, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So those are really the 2 things I wanted you to take notice of. So the fabric itself is gray, and then the blue and yellow is painted on when you see it flying around.
Sorry.
Okay. So that internal structure, you saw those yellow beams, those are the ones that go along the sides and along the top. Those are made of aluminum, and then all the cross pieces are carbon fiber. What that allows us to do not only is it gives some rigidity to the ship, but it allows us to attach things to a hard structure rather than just to the envelope. So on all the previous blimps, the engines had to be attached to the gondola itself. But on this ship, we can attach one on the tail and one on the sides. You can see it's attached on the side. The fins could be attached to a structure as well. I even noticed in the video there was like a cruciform structure, a big black, that's where the fin's attached to. So what that means is, on a blimp, on this guy's predecessor, if you were to lose pressure, those fins would start to droop and sag and you lose controllability. If we lose pressure, they stay exactly where they're supposed to be. The engines and the control surfaces stay exactly where they're supposed to be. We'll lose lift and we'll have to land, but we'll have full controllability when we're doing it. Inside, you saw those big black bags that we're filling up and deflating. That's a picture of those there. What those are is, they're called ballonets, French for little balloon, right? What those do is control the overall pressure of the ship. So, big empty space full of helium. Inside that, there's these black airbags full of just outside air that we can breathe. When the sun comes out and the helium starts to warm up, what happens when something warms up? It expands. Those internal airbags deflate. That way the ship doesn't keep expanding and rupture. Same thing when we climb. We climb, everything expands, those bags will deflate. When we descend or a cloud comes over and it starts to get cool, that helium condenses, those bags reinflate so the ship doesn't collapse on itself. That all happens pretty automatically. We can override it and do it manually, but it all happens pretty automatically. But it's one of those weird things that when you learn to fly a blimp, you've never thought about if you're a pilot flying an airplane. I've never had to once think about, oh my gosh, the clouds came out, my airplane just got 25% heavier than it was 5 minutes ago. So you know, you really have to kind of take that stuff into consideration when you're flying an airship or a blimp. So yeah, this is what the inside looks like. So it's these black cruciform structures. That's where the fins attach on the back, and then this beam goes across the middle. That's where the side engines are attached to, and then there's an engine attached all the way on the back as well. And those are all carbon fiber. That we call it the dog bone because it's kind of got big ends on it. The ends are where the fuel tanks are for each of the engines. And the engines swivel. So the side engines, they can swivel up to about 120 degrees. So I can actually back up. I can go backwards. Swivel them forward. We use those to help us get the initial lift taking off. And then when we swivel them forward, it gives us thrust to go forward. And then the aft engine is one engine, but it drives two propellers. One lateral propeller, like a helicopter's tail rotor, and then one propeller that swivels down. So what that does is, let's go back to the previous blimps. Previous blimps had two engines attached to the gondola. The only way they could steer was to be moving through the air, just like an airplane. You'd have to have some wind, some air flowing over the control surfaces in order to have control surface effectiveness in order to steer. So they would have to take off into the wind, land into the wind like a big, fat, slow airplane. Well, what we can do now is when we slow down and we lose that airflow over our fins, I can swivel this engine down, like the picture there, and now control of those propellers goes to my control stick, and I can use that engine to drive my tail up and down, left and right. So I could have full controllability without any airflow over the fins. So it allows us, even though we're about 50 feet longer than the previous blimp, we can operate in a much smaller area because we can be real maneuverable. We can come straight up and down and have full controllability. All right, blimp science. This is all the stuff that I learned in physics in high school, and I told Mr. Baroni at Padua, like, I'll never need to know this. Well, you become a blimp pilot, you got to learn Archimedes' principle and Boyle's law and Charles' law and all the additional aviation stuff that you need to know. But basically, it's like a boat. We float in, actually, it's kind of more like a submarine. But we float in the fluid around us because the air around us is more dense than the helium in the airship, so that's why we float. We end up being lighter than the surrounding air, or at least close to as light as the surrounding air. Really, you said that the ship weighs about 19,500 pounds. That's all the fabric and the engines and the structure and so forth. Once we put the helium in there, we end up being around anywhere between negative 200 and positive 400 or 500 kilograms. So it's about a 1,000-pound window that we operate in. So most of the time when you see us flying around out there over a game, we're actually heavier than air. We're normally around 300 to 400 kilograms, so about 600-700 pounds heavy. Well, how does that get into the air then, right? Well, what happens is those engines, we spool them up, and we lift up like a helicopter. Once we start moving through the air though, that whole shape of the blimp is like a wing. It's like an aircraft's wing. So as it's moving through the air, it creates lift, just like an airplane's wing does. So once we create enough lift by moving through the air, it doesn't take much. We only need to be moving 10, 15, 20 knots. We can swivel those engines down, and that gives us thrust. We have that aft engine, we'll swivel that so it's pointing back, and they have 3 engines of thrust. So now we can cruise along at 70 knots is what the book says, creating our own lift. If we were to shut down the engines and slow down, we would start to sink because we're heavier than air, we would lose that lift. So what we do is when we go to land, we're still heavier than air, we swivel those engines back up and use them to arrest our descent. So we really sink to the ground. If we are lighter than air, find ourselves lighter than air, and that happens sometimes, either planned or unplanned, but we'll use those engines to actually push ourselves to the ground and hold ourselves on the ground while the crew adds some weight so we don't float back in the air. All right, ballonets, we actually talked about these a little bit. I need to move that into a different place. Inside, we're a full glass cockpit, which means it's all state-of-the-art, no vacuum tubes. This is a nice, it's actually a Garmin helicopter suite, the same thing you'd see like in a, like a corporate helicopter or a life flight helicopter. It's the same type of avionics you would see in there for the stuff on the left and the right. Now the stuff in the middle is aircraft specific, but really most of this, that's the same stuff you'd see in any airplane. It's engine stuff, oil pressure, fuel flow, RPMs, just all the engine parameters. On this top one, you get into a little more blimp specific stuff. You can tell where your ballonets are, how full they are, what your pressures are for the helium, what your fins are doing, because you can't see your fins back there. So, this will show us, hey, they're actually moving where we want to go. And then inside, every seat's an aisle seat, every seat's a window seat, nice big windows, beautiful view. It's really a nice ride. The predecessor to this ship, for anybody who's been in it or seen it, was from about here up. There was only seats for a pilot plus 5 passengers. And it was loud because the engines were mounted right to the gondola. Everybody had a headset on, you couldn't get up and walk around. This one, we could have a conversation like this when we're cruising along. It's nice and quiet. The previous airship had big rudder pedals to turn left and right, and looked like a wheelchair wheel to go up and down. I have one little stick over on the left-hand side here. These are just footrests. I put my feet up and look out the window to hover, but just one stick that controls the flight controls, the ailerons in the rudder. And when we swivel that back engine down, now it controls that engine to drive the tail up and down, left and right. Our center console will look a lot like any other aircraft. We got propeller RPM levers, the blue ones, mixture, which controls the amount of fuel going to the engine, the red ones, and then the black ones are your throttles. The yellow ones are the only thing that would be different in an airship than in any other aircraft, because those are the ones that swivel the engines up and down. We try and go to big events, big sporting events, we even started going to, the last couple of years, other big events like concerts, big music festivals, Lollapalooza, this kind of stuff where there's millions of people, just to get the brand name out there more. We do a lot of customer relationships, just like this community engagement like we're doing right now. TV coverage that sports fans are familiar with, non-sports fans. We've even done stuff like the Oscars. We've covered the Oscars in LA. We've done, like like I said, some of the concerts and stuff like that. We've done some work for. And the night signs and messaging. We've actually used those night signs for some emergency stuff in the past. Remember the big San Francisco earthquake back in, was that 90s, mid-90s? Blimp happened to be up there flying around at the time and doing a Giants game, I believe. But we ended up using a lot of our footage for broadcasting it right to the news channels and putting signs on our Blimp about highways to avoid and so forth. Down in Katrina, we went down there telling people what numbers to call, where to go for emergency supplies and medical attention and so forth. We haven't done that since I've been here, and that's a good thing. LED signs, we talked about that a little bit. Yeah, everything from old Christmas tree lights to multicolored LEDs. And the camera started off with basically a movie camera hanging out of the side of the airship. And now we got a HG gyro stabilized camera. It's right out underneath my nose. Camera operator works it from inside the airship. And that thing's so good, I could read AT&T on your jacket from 1,500 feet away if I wanted to. And we could be up there bouncing around in the wind. You're going to get a nice steady picture at home because it's all gyro stabilized. And those are our guys. The camera operators are Goodyear employees. We covered all. All right. We even did some formation stuff this past summer. So. All right, so any questions you have, anything you want to talk about? That's all it for the presentation stuff, but yeah, what do you got?
I saw you in Akron. They were doing 100.
Mm-hmm. 100 yep, that was this past year. I was in the gray one. So there was one this year. There was one this year that we put basically a gray decal over the yellow and blue paint to make it look like the original Pilgrim airship. So we had that on all last year for the 100-year anniversary. But talk about we did a lot of stuff with the 3 ships in town. Flew around Akron up to Cleveland. We did a blimp race. It was on ESPN, the Ocho. So it was rigged. So. I won. So. We did a lot of stuff, had some formation stuff. Formation in a blimp is really not something we do often, and it's not something that really anybody in the whole organization was familiar with. They didn't know how to do it. They just said, well, let's just go fly next to each other. That's not a good idea. So I kind of took over that. I said, all right, now we're going to do this. We're going to do this the right way. And I took some of my Air Force experience, and I wasn't trying to turn us into the Thunderbirds, but it was a little more of the communications and the discipline stuff required to fly formation. We incorporated that, and it ended up looking right. I mean, you're still blimps. You're still airships that are going to be kind of all over the place, but we can do it safely or not, and then we did it safely. So when we do fly, actually down at Suffield, there's an observation lot right along the road, and you can go in there and park when we're doing, passenger rides or training are the best days. Downside is we don't have a really set schedule to publish for that because we are Blimp's very weather dependent. If we wanted to fly yesterday, no way we couldn't have, right? So. That's one of the frustrating things coming from an airplane pilot to a blimp pilot is, there are a lot of limitations. We start off with wind limitations. I mean, just to get it out of the hangar, we have to have less than 10 knots of wind. There's been days where, and we usually try and plan for this, but every once in a while it catches. There's been days where, we're supposed to go do a game in Columbus, and it's sunny and birds are chirping and it's beautiful weather and 5 knots of wind down there, but we couldn't get it out of the hangar back in Suffield because there was 12 knots of wind. And the network's yelling at us, "Where are you?" And we're like, "Well, we can't get it out of the hangar." So that's our first hurdle is getting it in and out of the hangar. And then we have some wind limits for operating. We don't like anything that's going to add weight. So yesterday, wet snow clinging to it adds a lot of weight. No way, that's no good. Even heavy rain, if it gets to the point where rain's running off of the ship, that could add about 400 or 500 kilograms of weight. So when you're operating in that negative 200 to 400 kilogram window, and you're taking off at 300 kilograms, and all of a sudden it starts pouring rain on you, and you're 700 kilograms, and you're too heavy to continue into the air, then you're in trouble. We have ways of dealing with that. We do carry, in order to get ourselves into that operating window, we adjust our fuel loads and we adjust our ballast. So we have solid weight ballast that we put on, and we also have water that we put in a 700 kilogram tank underneath the floor of the gondola, and I can dump that. So if it were to start raining on me and I got heavy, I could dump out that water to get back on the ground. But, you don't always have enough water to do that. So there are a couple airship companies around the world that are doing some airship development, and they are looking at some stuff like humanitarian aid, being able to broadcast messages of in a disaster area, for instance, of where to go for services, being able to bring in to a heavy hit earthquake or flood area that all the roads and airports are closed. They can come and hover and drop off supplies and medical personnel and so forth. So there are some companies that are looking at that kind of thing. For us, for Goodyear, it's always going to be the marketing. So, yeah.
In the air dock in Akron, does anything go on there?
So that facility, the air dock in Akron, that used to be owned by Goodyear. It was Goodyear Aerospace. We owned the hangar and then all the buildings attached to it. That went away in the mid 80s, 86, I believe, is during a restructuring of Goodyear. We sold off Goodyear Aerospace. Aside from airships, we also built the F-4 Corsairs fighter planes in those hangars, in that hangar down in Akron. Anyways, there's been several aircraft parts manufacturers that have operated out of those buildings. Right now, the hangar itself is a company called LTA, and they're doing some of this big airship development that I was talking about for humanitarian. So they're doing some research and studying in that hangar. They don't own it. The city of Akron owns that building, but there is a airship company that's doing some work there. And I can't talk too much to what they're doing. I mean, I know a little bit, but not much. Yeah.
About how many flights do you average in a year?
It varies. There's different times of year that are busy. Last year I had, 91 days gone overnight, which is not bad at all. If I was flying for the airlines, it'd be closer to 150, 200. As far as number of flights, again, that varies. We're very weather dependent, so we get a lot of cancellations. This thing's pretty technological, so we have some maintenance, concerns. So we shut it down to do some maintenance occasionally. I would say I probably average 250 or so flight hours per year, and that could be anywhere from a 45-minute passenger flight to a 8-hour game. So if we're doing a football game and I'm doing a Browns game, it takes about 45 minutes to get up there. We get up there an hour before the game, so the technicians and the camera operators can sync up all their signals and make sure everything's good. We do the whole game. We stay there for overtime. If it's a race or golf or something, they might have a trophy presentation. And then once the broadcaster, the ESPN or ABC or CBS is done with us, then we head home another 45 minutes. So that can end anywhere from 6 to 8 hours on average for a sporting event.
Yeah, what's the maximum pressure inside the helium, and is it?
So it's real low pressure. That helium pressure, when we're flying around, it's usually around 4 to 450 pascals, which equates to about a tenth to a quarter of a PSI. It's real low pressure. So people always ask the question like, oh, what if somebody shoots at it or something? Well, it's not going to pop. It's not going to pop. It's not going to be like a balloon and around. It's just going to have a small little leak. It might be days before we even know about that leak because it's such a low pressure. And if that hole were to be on the bottom part of the airship and we're just losing air out of the ballonets, we might not know about it for quite a while because that helium's trying to get up to the top anyways. So yeah, it's real low pressure on the envelope itself.
The other part of the question, what is your range from Akron? How far do you go to cover?
To cover it from Akron and to do a game and then come back, really Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Columbus is about as far as we go. And even those, a lot of times, if we're doing a game in Columbus, if it's a night game, we might fly out of here, out of Akron, straight to the game, cover the game, land, spend the night, and then come home the next day. Or if it's a early game, a noon game, we might go the night before, cover the game, and then leave straight from the game. So if it's more than it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours to Columbus, depending on the winds.
So the East Coast is not.
Oh yeah, we go all over, but I'm just talking about just for out of our base. Now, if we're going to go do a game in New York, we'll take all those 20 folks, and we've got those mass trucks and semi trucks with all our pieces and parts, and a small bus, about 7 vehicles and about 20 folks. We go on the road. I book the hotels. That's also my job, and the porta potties. And we take that whole crew on the road and go. We're like we're like carnies with a medical plan. So, but it's a big operation. So yeah, we have a big operation. Not every airport that we try and go to can offer us the space. So we're 250 feet long, 246 feet long. When we park, we're attached by the nose to that truck. So this is the truck, our mass truck. We'll attach to the nose of that. And when we're attached to the nose, the thing just spins around in the wind. It's the world's most expensive windsock. So we need an airport that has at least a 500-foot circle that's pretty flat, no antennas or fences or buildings in that circle, just to park it. And we'd like to have a little more room to come in and land and operate. So we really look for at least about 1,000-foot circle or square to operate in. Not everybody can give us that kind of space. So we have a bunch of airports around the country that we've looked at and surveyed. We've talked to their airport managers and gone out and measured off areas, and those are the ones we use for our network. Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any funny stories about flying around Europe?
My favorite stories are when we're flying around and everybody's a little kid when they see the blimp. So we'll be flying around and you'll see in kind of a remote area, cars pulled off to the side of the road, people out there taking pictures and stuff. I remember flying one time. I was just flying along, and I just happened to be looking out the window, and a guy came out on his deck and looked up, and I saw him. He ran back in, he came back out, and just to grab his phone because he was looking up there. So I stopped and I did a couple of circles around him. He had to be like, "What the heck just happened here?" So yeah, stuff like that is really fun to do. All my good friends have had nice good flyovers and stuff of their houses. So their neighborhood Facebook pages are always blowing up on what's going on here. Why is the Goodyear blimp here? So those are the fun things. But there's a couple different components that have different lifespans. So the Wingfoot 1, which is the one currently based in Akron, that was built in 2014. And it was supposed to have a new envelope put on after 10 years was the original estimate. And then we got that extended 2 years with the FAA, looking at the condition of it, and then we extended another 2 years. So we're going to get a new envelope in 2028 for that. So, we're hoping that all of them, the one on Wingfoot 3 that spends its time out in LA most of the time, they don't have a hangar and they're out in the sun. So that one gets beat up a little more as far as, so that's probably not going to last quite as long. I would say for the envelope, we're probably going to end up averaging between 10 and 14 years. And then the internal structure, I mean, they can replace parts of the structure, but we're hoping to get, 20, 30 years at least out of those, the structure parts, and then replace individual parts of that structure as we go along. Yeah.
There's a helium shortage. Do you have a problem getting helium?
It's another one of those expensive things. So helium, helium's it's pretty rare. They mine helium as a byproduct of the oil and gas mining. Usually they don't mine for just helium. It's part of mining for natural gas and oil. And then that has to be, those gases are captured and they're filtered out and so forth to get helium. Back in 2019, the largest US producer or refiner of helium was shutting down for a planned shutdown, a planned like refurbishing of the plant. Late 2019 into 2020. And then what happened? The world ended, right? And then, so they were shut down even longer. So they went another, like a year beyond projections for helium production. So helium got pretty expensive. 2 years after that, the second largest producer or refiner in the world was in Ukraine. And they shut down production. So worldwide, the helium's there, it's just not being refined. So it's not necessarily a shortage of the gas, it's a shortage of having the gas refined and ready to go. Mainly, a lot of it is for those two biggest producers that pretty much shut down for quite a while. We're getting back into the swing of things, and it's getting back up. And there's a lot of people who use helium for much more important reasons than I do. It's in a lot of like medical devices, MRI machines and stuff like that. That's a lot more important. But we use it in the Blimp. We use a lot of it. And then some of these other companies that are looking to use it, they're going to use it as well. Because while hydrogen would be great if we could use it because it's cheap, we can make it in our kitchen. It also explodes, right? It's very explosive. And we got the good stuff. So, your party balloon that you get at Giant Eagle is usually around 60-65% helium. We operate at least 94%. Normally we're in the 97-98% range of pure helium. So it's good stuff. And same thing with the medical devices stuff. They're using the pure helium. So we, speaking of helium, this fabric, Tedlar infused with polyurethane coated with infused with polyester coated with polyurethane helps keep that helium in. But even that, it's the second smallest molecule, so it finds a way out. We lose about 10 cubic meters of helium per day, just seeping through the fabric. Each cubic meter of helium lifts 1 kilogram of weight. So after a week, you lose about 70 cubic meters of helium, about 70 kilograms of weight. You probably weigh about 70 or 80 kilograms. It's about a person's worth of weight every week. So about every week or two, we pump a little helium back in, but we don't have to refill the whole thing. Every year, when we do our annual maintenance, we take the helium out. We suck it out of the ship, put it in these big bags, then recondense it, put it back in the truck, and then when we're done with maintenance, we pump it back into the airship, so we save as much as we can. We lose a little bit in the process, but we're not just dumping it out into the air and talking funny. And we have to get that stuff out of the ship when we work on it too, because everybody's inhaled a helium balloon and talk funny, right? Well, helium's not good for you. It robs your body of oxygen. So the pure stuff, if you were to go into the chamber of the airship with pure helium, you'd talk funny about 2 minutes before you passed out and died, because it actually pulls the oxygen out of your body. So we do a oil changes every 50 hours. We do a 100-hour every 100 hours of flight hour on the engines, we do an inspection. And then all the engines have a time before overhaul. So usually that's about 1,600 or I think it's 2,000 for ours. Is two, yeah, for like every 2,000 hours we pull the engine, put it, get it, send it off, get it rebuilt, and then put a new one on. So.
They were putting it together in the hangar.
Yeah.
How long that took from beginning?
It's about a year. It's about a year process. Yeah. So that's all those parts. Not all the parts. Most of the parts are made in Germany. So Zeppelin company in Germany. They let's see. After World War I and II, had a little bit of issue doing business, right? Well, after World War II, World War I, they actually sent a lot of their folks over here, and they worked with Goodyear to build those large airships for the Navy. About the 80s or so, they started getting back into some airship production in Europe. And they built an airship very similar to ours. And they have two of them over there operating. They're actually building a third right now. One of them is actually painted Goodyear. We don't own it and operate it. They operate it, but they have a marketing agreement with us. And for a discount on parts, they're flying some TV coverage and stuff over in Europe for us. So when it came time for us to build new airships, we got together with Zeppelin and build the Zeppelin NT. It's a new technology. It's very similar to their current ships with some avionics upgrades, some flight control electronics upgrades. Dimensions are pretty much the same though. I mean, I'm sure they can jump in our ship, I could jump in their ship and go fly it, no problem. But there are some minor differences. And they, like I said, they've been flying those since the 80s over in Europe. So the ships, it's a good ship. I mean, there's some challenges. I'm not going to lie to you. There's some mechanical, with anything with a lot of technology, and it's a one-off. It's not like there's a production line of hundreds of airships that they've learned lessons on. We learn lessons as we go. We only have 3 of them in the States, so it takes a while to learn those lessons. So, the first couple years when we had these things, there was a lot more breakdowns than there are now, and but it's still a good, safe ship.
How many people in America can do what you do?
When we're fully staffed, each base has 4 pilots, and there's 1 chief pilot in Akron, so 13 total pilots. Right now we're at 11. So yeah, there's 11 of us in Goodyear. And then, throughout the country, there's a couple other small blimp operations that are flying around. So there's other blimp pilots around, but not many. I mean, the estimates is there's only about 25 or so operational blimps in the world. And probably less than 50 active current flying blimp pilots in the world. So we would say there's more astronauts, or there's more astronauts than blimp pilots. So I ask myself that question every day. Yeah. So no, I moved back to Ohio after I retired from the Air Force, and I was flying corporate out in Youngstown, and I left that job. And I went and flew for a small airline for a while, and I couldn't stand it. I hated the airlines. Hats off to any airline pilot, man. Good on you. I just can't stand being in an airport. It drives me insane. So I was looking for another corporate job, and I saw the posting for this. And it was never anything I thought I'd want to do. Probably the opposite. I mean, I knew of it. I live 15 minutes away. I grew up, in Brunswick. I've seen it fly over a couple times. So I knew of it, but I was like, I don't want to go low and slow and have my Saturdays flying games. I'd still rather be home watching a game. But I said, what the heck, I'll shoot him a resume. And I did. And like everything in airships, it moves at the speed of blimp. And several months later, I get a call. I'd kind of forgotten I even applied for the job, to be honest. And they said, we got your resume here. Would you be interested in talking to us? And well, 9 years later, I'm still here. So Yep. Yeah.
Have you been in any emergency situations where something failed and you were free?
You know, not a whole lot. Probably the biggest one I had was actually just a couple weeks ago, or probably in early December or late November. And I talked about that water ballast that we carry in the ship. So I had 700 kilograms of water in my tank. And I was doing my check ride. So it's me and another pilot, and it's just my annual check ride that we do. And I had done a landing where I had dumped a little bit of water on the landing. Well, we landed, we stopped, we're reconfiguring the ship, getting ready to take off for the next one. We're talking about, a couple things, what I did right, what I did wrong, it's typical check ride stuff. And the ship starts bouncing a little bit. And Adam looks out the window, and like a child wet himself, it's just water pouring over the ramp. The valve got stuck. So I went from, at the time, I was about 300 kilograms of weight, and I lost 700. So now I'm negative 400 kilograms. Our maximum allowable is negative 200. It's not supposed to be able to land at less than that. So I'm like, well, what do we do now? We're up there flying around. I'm flying around like this so I don't keep floating into the air. And, helium's expensive and rare, so I don't want to, I could always make myself heavier by dumping helium. I can get rid of some helium, but I don't want to do that. So we came down and like, well, let me try and see if I can get it on the ground enough for them to add some weight. So the crew's got these, they're bags of copper-coated lead shot. They're 10 kilograms each, so 22-pound each bags. And I land with the nose pointing down because that's helping me keep it on the ground. And they're chucking bags on. And I was able to keep it on the ground. They threw on 82 bags, 820 kilograms of weight, so 1,700 pounds, I think is what it was, of weight. So yeah, it was never anything that I was worried about because I could always make myself heavier by getting rid of the helium, but it was definitely one that made you process. And I told Adam, I'm good on light landings now, so we don't need to do that anymore on a check ride. So, but yeah, I haven't had nothing else.
You do have quite a control over the helium.
Yeah, I can. Well, what we have in the ship when we take off, that's what we have for the rest of the day. I can get rid of it, but I can't get it back. So what'll happen sometimes is, those ballonets, when we climb, that helium expands, those ballonets deflate, those internal air bags. When the sun comes out, the helium gets hot and expands, those ballonets deflate. Well, if I'm flying out of LA, going to someplace in Arizona, climbing up, I'm going from sea level up to a higher elevation, those bags are deflating, all right? If I want to cross a mountain ridge and I need to go even higher, those bags deflate. Once they're fully deflated, that's it. I can't go any higher. So if I still have to get over that mountain ridge, I actually have to dump helium. And that was a head scratcher when I was learning how to fly this thing. In order to go higher, I need less helium. So I'd have to dump helium so it had room to expand. The problem is when you get over that ridge, you come down on the other side, you don't have that helium anymore. So now if you go all the way back down to sea level, you're heavy. Well, we play that. We know that, and we work that. When we're doing, we fly this ship every year they don't have a hangar in LA, so when we do its annual maintenance, we have to come back to Ohio. So we fly it to and from LA every year. And you're always planning that helium, where you're landing and you're coming down and now you're heavy. So you don't want to dump too much helium because you'll be too heavy, but you need to dump enough so you can not crash into a mountain. So.
Your max operational altitude.
We're certified up to 10,000 because of the not pressurized. It's only been tested up to 8. I think I've been up to 6, 5,500, 6,000. But it varies day to day based on the outside air temperature, outside air pressures, how much helium we have on board. So our maximum altitude varies day to day.
Will you
You
be
have
at
to operate through the passes coming back.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Will you be at the Super Bowl this year?
I don't think we're doing the Super Bowl. I don't even know where the Super Bowl is this year. Yeah, but I know they're doing. The Florida crew is doing the national championship game on Monday down in Miami, for Indiana and Miami. My next things are, we're doing our annual maintenance in Ohio in the wintertime because few and far between the days that we can fly. We can fly on a nice cold day, but the problem is if the ramp is covered with ice, we can't bring the ship out because if the wind blows and it drags that big truck across the ice, that's no good. So I'll go out and fly with Florida or California. So my next thing is out to California in a couple weeks for golf at Torrey Pines, then Phoenix golf at the Waste Management Open, and then I go from there down to Daytona for the Daytona 500. So. But yeah, it's a busy time of year, and then the guys back here in Ohio, they're busy because they're doing maintenance on the ship the whole time. So the pilots were off fine with getting out of the cold for a little bit, but everybody's still staying busy.
How many hours for a flight out to LA?
It's 8 legs out to LA. So how far we go in a certain day, really we're depending on the ground crew because I need that truck. I can't land and tie it to a tree or a light post. So when we go on the road, I need that truck to get there to the airport that we're heading to. Those guys are all DOT drivers, so they have driving day restrictions, work day restrictions. We try and do it in an 8-hour workday so we don't have to pay overtime. So that ends up being about 350 or so road miles per day is about as far as we'll travel. So that trip from LA is 8 legs. We'll do LA to Phoenix, Phoenix to Deming, Deming to El Paso, or Deming to Hobbs, Hobbs to Lawton, Oklahoma, Springfield, St. Louis, Indy, and here. So, yeah.
You got to look for a good block of weather too.
I spent 6 days in Hobbs, New Mexico, waiting for weather to clear to go. I don't recommend it as a vacation destination. So I mean, if you like dust, then go ahead. But yeah, Hobbs, New Mexico. All right. Oh, hey, my pleasure. I'm glad I can finally come down here, and I appreciate you guys asking me down.